The Fonte della Fata Morgana is a small 16th century building located in the Florentine countryside and was once an infeum in the park of Villa Riposo in Grassina. The surrounding natural landscape increases the magical atmosphere of the complex that looks like a single and isolated building articulated like a theatrical backdrop around a small courtyard. Commissioned by the Florentine politician Bernardo Vecchietti, the Fonte was built starting from 1570 by Gian Bologna and dedicated to Fay Morgana that, according to local traditions, inhabited the hill. The actual nymphaeum is placed at the center of the composition, flanked to its left by a large and slightly advanced tabernacle, while in the orthogonal direction a earth-retaining wall hosts two basins and a large recessed seat. The surfaces of the external walls are plastered with a pale red motif looking like a masonry texture, while the ornamental windows, the entrance and the decorations are realized recurring to local pietra alberese. The wall on the right side of the court has a sagomated profile and hosts three niches framed with stone arches and once openly accessible to visitors. Internally, the nymphaeum is articulated on two levels and revolves around the large double-height main room with a vaulted ceiling. In the monumental fountain, a precious marble sculpture by Gian Bologna depicting Morgana was preserved. In this room, once covered with frescoes, banquets and receptions were held for Vecchietti's hosts. A system of artificial tunnels dug into the hill provides the water supply. Waters coming from local springs are in fact collected in an underground cistern still in function. Narrow stairs lead to the small rooms at the upper level, probably used as kitchens and flooded with sunlight. Fonte della Fata Morgana is an unicum in the architectural scenario of Manierism, and the work proposed could be useful to enhance its promotion and preservation. The case study described so far underwent a process of BIM modeling, starting from a first phase of data acquisition in order to obtain a point cloud of the building and ensuring the accuracy with a final validation of the model. At the end, a 3D replica of the Fonte has been realized. Bibliographic and archival material was preliminarily collected in order to acquire the results of previous surveys and information about the history of the building, its possible transformations and construction techniques typical of the time. The Fonte is dating back to 1570 when Bernardo Vecchietti commissioned Gian Bologna its realization. After the death of Bernardo Vecchietti, the Fonte and the park had to face centuries of decays, until in 1960 the municipality of Bagno Ripoli bought the estate, and in 2002 long restoration works made the Fonte visitable again. Two surveys campaigns were held to collect measures and to investigate all the details of the building with sufficient care. The measures were collected recurring to traditional instruments and using laser distance meter for wider spaces. A massive scientific photographic campaign was also carried out to get a subsequent reconstruction of the geometric data through the use of photogrammetry. Topographical targets were applied in the most complex points of the building to minimize the error in the reconstruction phase of the digital model. The photographic material collected after first selection was processed in Photoscan in order to obtain point clouds both for the exteriors and for the internal rooms. The operations followed steps that progressively refined the data, starting from a reconstruction of photos positions and leading to a texturized point cloud with a high quality level. The strong contrast of lighting between the external facade and the internal space obliged the creation of a specific point cloud for the central portion. The cloud obtained so far was scaled, with reference to measures obtained by manual survey to minimize any discrepancies with reality and ensure correct dimensional data. At the end of this phase, the point cloud was exported in .las format to undergo further elaborations. The point cloud was in fact imported and ready in Autodesk Recap, a software meant to integrate photogrammetry or laser scanning results in a BIM environment. Through Recap, it was possible to acquire measures not easily obtainable with traditional strategies. A section box allowed to explore the cloud, and a specific tool was then used to get the required and otherwise missing information. Recap was moreover indispensable to convert the point cloud in a format readable in Autodesk Revit, to proceed with the BIM modeling of the building. Once the point cloud was imported, a BIM restitution of the building in Revit was carried out and led to the creation of a model containing both geometrical and informative contents as well. The plan geometry has been reconstructed by combining the evidence of the manual survey with the profiles suggested by the section of the cloud in order to guarantee a faithful return of the real configuration of the construction. The geometry of the building was faithfully modeled, reconstructing the complex articulation of the building, built in a hollow of the hill and partially buried. At the ground level, a series of basins and cisterns, not easily accessible and not open to visitors, can be found in the locales next to the main room. Details were modeled as Revit families, with the exception of those elements that had a unique morphological characteristics, for which an in-place creation logic was indispensable. In parallel with the geometrical precision, even data implementation was ensured. The research focused on the restitution of a suitable texture for surfaces, obtained by extrapolating orthophotos and a consequent decay analysis. Orthophotos were extrapolated by the point cloud and a photographical campaign. After a photo editing process, they were implemented in the model, assigning them to newly created materials. This procedure was itself an indicator of the correctness and approximation desired in the creation of a digital model. The result was surprisingly accurate and allowed further analysis, such as a careful description of the degradation condition of external surfaces. The general model and various families underwent a validation process based on the comparison between point clouds using Cloud Compare, a software capable of providing a measure of the degree of fidelity achieved with modeling. The operation allowed to validate the modeling carried out. The comparison takes obviously into account a possible range of geometric error, which in this case is around 3-4 cm. the most significant discrepancies are due to the state of degradation of various parts of the buildings. In modeling phase, it was not possible to faithfully replicate the surface altered by time and decays. In order to explore the possibilities offered by a digital reconstruction of historical buildings, even a 3D printing process was carried on. The STL format model extracted from Revit was checked to verify its quality and then imported in the software used to set the printing options. A 3D replica of the entrance portal was successfully produced, taking the research back to a real and concrete dimension from the digital one. BIM modeling is a tool capable of introducing new possibilities in data management for historical buildings and their preservations. The case study proposed faces the problems related with the theme of model validation. This procedure would lead to the creation of classifiable models according to an error distribution capable of defining minimum information validated within the model. New possibilities of further applications could be explored by connecting BIM modeling and 3D printing technologies. Small-scale replicas could be introduced from blind visitors or didactic aims. Even the integration of deteriorated portions with newly printed elements could be experimented.